In a move that has sent shockwaves across the continent, Hungary has stunned Europe by announcing its intention to join the BRICS economic bloc. This decision is not just a diplomatic maneuver, it represents a profound shift in Hungary's foreign policy and its vision for the future. By taking this step, Hungary is openly challenging the European Union's unity and cohesion like never before, raising concerns about the very fabric that holds the EU together. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government made the declaration in Budapest, signaling a bold assertion of national sovereignty and a dramatic pivot away from the traditional Western alliances that have defined Hungary's post-Cold War era. For the first time in history, an EU member state is seeking to join a bloc widely regarded as a rival to the Western-led order. This unprecedented move raises urgent questions about the EU's future direction, its ability to maintain solidarity, and the potential for further fragmentation. Brussels now faces a scenario it never anticipated, a member state straddling two competing geopolitical camps, forcing the EU to reconsider its strategies and alliances. The timing of Hungary's announcement is critical, coming at a moment when global alliances are in flux and new power centers are rapidly emerging on the world stage. Hungary's gamble is clear. It is betting on a multipolar world, seeking to maximize its autonomy, and positioning itself to benefit from shifting global dynamics. By forging new partnerships with BRICS nations, Hungary hopes to unlock fresh economic opportunities, diversify its trade, and reduce its dependence on the EU. In this video, we'll delve into the roots of Hungary's break with the EU, examine the growing appeal of the BRICS alliance, and analyze what this means for the future of European integration. We'll also explore the seismic consequences for Europe's stability, identity, and the delicate balance of power that has defined the continent for decades. The Danube, once a symbol of unity and connection, now stands as a powerful metaphor for a new ideological divide running through the heart of Europe. Hungary's relationship with the European Union has been fraught with tension and complexity ever since it joined the bloc in 2004. What began as a hopeful partnership, with Hungary eager to embrace European values and economic opportunities, soon became a story marked by growing friction and mutual suspicion. In the early years, EU membership brought Hungary a wave of economic growth, foreign investment, and a sense of optimism about its future. However, the political landscape shifted dramatically when Viktor Orban returned to power in 2010. His government's nationalist agenda and controversial reforms sparked deep ideological clashes with Brussels, fundamentally altering Hungary's trajectory within the EU. Disputes over democracy, the rule of law, and national sovereignty have become central flashpoints. The EU has repeatedly criticized Hungary for undermining judicial independence and media freedom, leading to the unprecedented activation of Article 7, the bloc's most serious disciplinary procedure. In response, Brussels has withheld billions of euros in funding, demanding sweeping reforms to Hungary's judiciary and anti-corruption measures. These financial penalties have put significant pressure on the Hungarian government, intensifying the standoff. Viktor Orban, however, frames these actions as nothing less than financial blackmail. He has used this narrative to rally domestic support, portraying Hungary as a nation standing up for its sovereignty against outside interference, a message that resonates deeply with many Hungarians who feel misunderstood by Brussels. As trust between Budapest and Brussels has eroded, Hungary has increasingly looked eastward, seeking new partnerships and investment from countries like China and Russia. These relationships offer alternatives to EU funding and align with Orban's vision of a more independent Hungary. The result is a government determined to break free from what it sees as the EU's restrictive constraints, and a public that is gradually becoming more open to forging new alliances beyond the West. This shift is visible in both political rhetoric and public opinion. Years of conflict and confrontation have set the stage for Hungary's dramatic eastward turn, marking a significant realignment in its foreign policy and economic strategy. Now, as Hungary explores closer ties with the BRICS nations, Budapest sees a potential escape from the EU's tightening embrace, opening a new chapter in its ongoing quest for autonomy and influence on the global stage. BRICS began as an economic label for Brazil, Russia, India, and China, coined in the early 2000s to highlight the rapid growth and emerging influence of these four major economies on the world stage. Over time, however, BRICS has evolved far beyond just an economic grouping. It has grown into a powerful political bloc, shaping global conversations and challenging established international norms. With the addition of South Africa in 2010, and the recent expansion to include Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran, the group has become even more diverse and influential, now often referred to as BRICS Plus. Today, BRICS represents nearly half the world's population, spanning multiple continents and cultures, and commands a major share of global GDP. Its member countries are home to some of the world's fastest-growing cities and economies, making the bloc a significant force in international affairs. The bloc's core mission is to challenge Western dominance in global institutions, offering an alternative vision for international cooperation and development. BRICS also aims to promote trade in local currencies, reducing dependence on the US dollar and encouraging financial transactions that reflect the interests of its diverse members. To support this, the group has created alternative financial institutions like the New Development Bank, which funds infrastructure and development projects without the political conditions often attached by Western lenders. Unlike the European Union, BRICS is not a tightly integrated union. Instead, it operates on principles of consensus, non-interference, and respect for different political systems, allowing for greater flexibility and autonomy among its members. This approach appeals to many countries, especially those wary of Western conditions on aid, governance, and economic policy, who see BRICS as a more accommodating partner. For Hungary, which has faced increasing pressure and criticism from the European Union, BRICS offers access to new sources of funding and investment, often with fewer political strings attached. The bloc's push for a common payment system, designed to facilitate cross-border transactions and reduce barriers to trade, and its emphasis on reducing reliance on the US dollar, is especially attractive to countries seeking greater financial independence and resilience in a changing global economy. As a result, BRICS is now a magnet for countries looking to diversify their alliances, assert their sovereignty, and play a more active role in shaping the future of global governance. For Budapest, joining or aligning with BRICS presents a tempting alternative to the EU's demands, offering new opportunities for growth, partnership, and international influence. Hungary's pivot to BRICS is the result of its Eastern opening policy, a decade-long effort to diversify beyond the West. Trade with China has surged, and Russian energy remains vital, despite EU efforts to reduce dependence. Orban's government seeks strategic autonomy, resisting EU sanctions on Russia and tough stances on China. Ideologically, Hungary's illiberal democracy aligns more with BRICS principles of non-interference than with the EU's liberal consensus. Joining BRICS is also a bargaining chip. Budapest hopes to pressure Brussels into releasing frozen funds and tolerating policy divergence. The move is high stakes. Hungary bets the EU will accommodate rather than risk further division. For Orban, BRICS is both a strategic realignment and leverage in negotiations with the EU. It's a calculated gamble for greater independence. Hungary's shift east is visible in its trade, diplomacy, and energy ties. Over 15 years, trade with the EU has dropped from 80% to 65%, while commerce with China and Russia has surged. Diplomatic visits now favor Moscow and Beijing over Brussels, reflecting new priorities. Energy infrastructure, like the Turk Stream pipeline and the Russian-built PAX-2 nuclear plant, locks Hungary into long-term Eastern partnerships. As EU funds become uncertain, Chinese investment, especially in electric vehicles and batteries, has soared, making China Hungary's top new investor. These economic and strategic ties anchor Hungary's eastward pivot. The government points to job creation and industrial growth as proof of success. For many Hungarians, the benefits are tangible, and the case for looking east is growing stronger. The data tells a story of a country steadily reorienting itself away from Brussels. Brussels has reacted with alarm and confusion to Hungary's BRICS announcement. The European Commission calls it a grave breach of EU principles, but there's no clear legal precedent for a member joining a rival bloc. Officials fear Hungary could use its EU veto to block sanctions or foreign policy decisions that conflict with BRICS interests. The threat of withholding funds now seems less effective as Hungary turns to BRICS for alternative financing. The EU faces a dilemma: punish Hungary and risk deepening the rift, or accommodate and risk setting a dangerous precedent. The crisis exposes the limits of EU leverage and unity. Brussels is scrambling for a strategy, but the path forward is fraught with risk. The Union's resolve is being tested as never before. European capitals are split over Hungary's move. France and Germany demand a tough response, seeing Hungary's action as a threat to EU values and security. Central and Eastern European countries urge dialogue, fearing harsh measures could backfire and deepen divisions. The Baltics and Poland, alarmed by Russian influence, call Hungary's pivot a betrayal and demand isolation. Southern states like Italy and Greece watch closely, seeing potential leverage for their own disputes with Brussels. The crisis is a stress test for the EU's fragile network of relationships. Hungary's defiance has exposed old fault lines and created new ones. The future of European unity hangs in the balance. Hungary's BRICS bid has paralyzed EU decision-making on foreign policy and security. Trust within the European Council is eroding, as Hungary's dual loyalties cast doubt on its commitments. Informal coalitions may form to bypass Budapest, fragmenting the EU's common front. Economically, the forint is volatile, borrowing costs are up, and regulatory divergence threatens the single market. If Hungary aligns with BRICS standards, companies could face conflicting rules, undermining the EU's level playing field. The move also weakens the EU's appeal to candidate countries who now see alternatives to Western integration. The psychological blow is severe. The idea of ever closer union is now in question. Hungary's action sets a precedent for a multi-tier Europe, raising fears of gradual disintegration. The EU faces an existential crisis over its identity and future. Hungary's BRICS gambit is a turning point for the EU. It's the result of years of growing distrust, strategic divergence, and a desire for autonomy. The move exposes deep fractures between East and West, sovereignty and integration, liberal and illiberal visions. The EU's response will shape its future: isolation or accommodation, unity or fragmentation. Enlargement policy and soft power are weakened as rivals operate from within. Europe must now confront the tension between national interests and collective purpose. Hungary's challenge is about more than policy. It's about the soul of the European project. The question remains, will this crisis break the Union or force it to adapt and survive?